everyone, this is Kelly, and I am here to talk about an oracle called the Tulku Oracle. And this is an oracle that at the time of, I was going to say at the time of casting, because that's, my favorite phrase, because energy shifts and stuff like that. And from the time of casting to, whenever down the road. But at the time of filming, this is an oracle that is in Kickstarter. And so I will put a link to that Kickstarter below, but then I will also put a link to the website, because obviously if this is something that's viewed down the road, that Kickstarter will no longer be a valid one. So what you're looking at here is a prototype of the deck. I don't have the box. I don't have a physical form of the book, although I have a PDF form of the book in which I have read. But you can go to the Kickstarter link to see those things surrounding the box and all of that kind of stuff. I am just here to take a look at the cards, as well as to talk about the guidebook, which I actually do think is something that should be referenced, because I do think it's a deck that most likely needs that guidebook, and I actually think the guidebook is quite extensive and well worth using and working with. So we'll take a look at that in a minute on my iPad. So this is a deck that I was approached with by the creator, and when that happens, I do tend to go and take a look at whatever they might have, pictures that they might have. I like to go take a peek at their websites and things like that, just to make sure that it's something that I feel like would something that I would be interested in, something that I would consider purchasing myself, or for some reason piques my attention. What piqued my attention when I saw this and when I talked to the creator were two things. One of them was the color palette. If you've followed my channel long enough, you know that this type of color palette that is vibrant and rich and earthy, like it's so hard to you say, oh, those aren't the same. Those are different, but no, the earth is full of vibrancy and color and life, but also just has this is just one of the suits, but it has it just feels very much like the color palettes of, say, the mystical shaman, or the color palettes of even the illuminated earth, although this is, I would say, brighter and more vibrant, but just that blend of those two, like vibrancy and richness of color, but in a way that feels extraordinarily earthy. That color palette really speaks to me. It's like a, something that, will really grab my attention in a particular deck, and this has that in spades. So that was the first thing that caught my attention. The second thing that really interested me is that this is a second part of a process, and I've had personal experience with a symbol system, my own symbol system, starting in one direction, going into a purely symbolic, no imagery, but symbolic in a token, versus something that's fully colored out, and then to later painting those images. And so again, not comparing those things at all, but I understood what the lesson that I learned from that is, that in that process of two steps, you really start to develop, you start in this one place with a particular set of symbols, whatever those might be, and the more that you work with them, it's like somebody, working with runes for a very long time, or working with owens for a very long time, and then after they come, to the point where they're going to maybe make a deck, and visualize those things, because those are not visual things, right? I mean, they're symbols, but they are alphabet symbols, so there's not a lot of imagery there. And so coming into that space where you're then going to sit down and paint that or draw that or whatever it is the medium that you're going to use, you're taking your experience of working with something and then translating that into another medium, and it takes on this whole other kind of energy. And so, and again, I think you even see this with tarot, although there are traditional imagery that certainly goes with tarot. And so when somebody's creating a tarot, they're creating their version of that. And the same thing there, though, is that generally, if it's somebody who's actually used tarot for a long time, they're then sort of interpreting those symbols in the through their own art and through their own understanding of working with something. So I know I'm rambling, but this was what drew me, to this. So I did want to make sure I mentioned it. So this creator here, whose name is Carla, and I cannot. Refoxo, I believe. My glasses were not on my head. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm not going to read that. Refoxo, Refoxo. I could be saying that incorrectly. I do apologize. She has, again, I'll put her website below, but she has been working with a set of symbols that were made into amulets or talisman and talismanic jewelry that she has been working with over the course of many, many years. And so over the course of using those different symbols over this many years, working with people, working with healing with them, and all of that goes into that. After all of these many years, then saying, okay, I can see a next expression of these symbols in an oracle deck. And then when you sit down to paint, I'm saying what I see here is that when you go to sit down then and to paint those through, and I know she uses frescoes and images of frescoes and things that she's done, digital painting, collaging, like a lot of things are going on here. And when you sit down to create that, it becomes in some ways something new, right? It becomes an expression of understanding over much time, and now being able to depict that in a fresh and powerful way. So not only are the concepts ones in which she has worked with for a lifetime, but then you add in the particular symbols that she's been working with in a metal, symbolic, talismanic way, and then transferring that energy into, now here's the fullness of my understanding of these after having worked with them and how I believe they can be used in an oracle sense. And that really intrigued me. And so that's what, when I went to look at it, I thought, okay, colors, bam, yes, wow. Really wow. Artistically, really, really wow, right? And then it was that layer here of a long time working with a set of symbols, and then coming in and then sort of we get to the benefit in seeing these oracles cards of her experiential knowledge, what she's learned along the way, the different paths that she may have gone on with, like plant work and different things like that, more animistic style work. And as she's progressing, the symbols then become deeper and deeper and more personal, and then she has this expression here, and that intrigued me, right? So those are the things that intrigued me about this. So I do actually recommend, even though this is something separate, I do recommend taking a look at her website, where she talks about the process of these symbols. She talks about the process in which the talismans are made in, I believe, Nepal by a Buddhist monk who is a metal worker, an artistic spiritual metal worker, I guess you would say, because the things that they make are for spiritual purposes, and the creation of all of those things and the process of those symbols I do think because that's the foundation of where this comes from. So I think it's worth taking time to take a look over there and see how all of that came into being and how those things are continuing to be created in a spiritual sense, because then that is the sort of forefather of then the oracle cards. Okay, so I wanted to make note of that because it interested me. Now, I do want to talk a little bit about the fact that there is a degree of a system here. So there are three. You can see I have three piles here. 1 through 29 are what are symbols. So these are specific symbols. Like, as you can see with the first 7, these would be the chakras or energetic points. I work with them as energy points, but these would be related to the 7 chakras. And so these are related specifically to symbols. Many of these are, or I would say, not all, because there are things like the mirror and the tree of life, and things like that. Many of the symbols are from Hindu and Buddhist. I would almost say probably more specifically Tibetan Buddhist. I studied Buddhism for a very, very long time, although more as a engaged or Zen Buddhist in teachings of, say, Thich Nhat Hanh. But also one of the people that I would have considered one of my teachers through resources was Tibetan Buddhism. I was a Tibetan Buddhist nun, and so I would say that there's a lot of elements of Tibetan Buddhism, perhaps, and certainly Hindu references. But then there are other things along the way. So we have symbols here in the first 29 cards. And then there is the smallest symbols are from 30 to 38, and this is related to totems. I think all except for the last are animal totems. Except for, I don't know if I would necessarily consider Ganesh to be an animal totem. I'm probably more as a deity. Oh no, so it's 38, that's why. I'm like, I don't know that I would, that doesn't seem right. I'm sorry about that. 30 through 38 are totem energies. I'm like, I know it's got the elephant core, but I would say that would be a deity. And then 39 through 53 are archetypes or deities, like Ganesh. Depending on how some people use deities as literal, they are divinity for them in practice and in knowledge, and other people work with deities as more archetypal, more an iteration or a one cultural coalescence into a beautiful expression of the divine, which is probably more so how I work with things of that nature. So you have like Ganesh and Lakshmi and Artemis, White Buffalo, Kuan Yin, and so on and so forth. Of course, we're going to look at these. I know we're Isis. I know we are pre looking at some of the cards, but I think it's important just to see what the breakdown of the deck is. So that's one way in which the cards are broken down. The other way you will be able to see on the tops of the cards, which also interests me because it's very much an elementally based deck. And so there are the symbols. So for example, that is the symbol of fire at the top. We'll be looking closely. And she's using the 5 elemental system, Eastern elemental system. So we have fire, we have wood. Just think about things that are growing. It looks like a plant that's growing. That obviously looks like a flame. Let me see if I find the next one. This right here would be earth. Almost looks like a brigad's cross. Here we have water. Right here. And then the other one is air metal, which is right here. which is metal, but is she's associating with metal. So we have those broken down, and once we go through the cards one by one, I'll probably break them down into their elements so we can just see how those elements break up. I think that's to me a really intriguing part of it, and what I love is that we see this reflected in, let me pull up, 264 pages, and I know I'm going to turn, this is going to be difficult for, and again, I'm not really trying to show it because this is not the format that you would get it in, but just so that you can see, there are 265 pages of this, but what I really love, one of the things that I love, so for example, here is the entry for Kuan Yin, and so you have the title and the number, for number 43, Kuan Yin. We have an image of the card here in black and white. We have sort of a statement from the card, you know, a mantra of sorts, I suppose. Compassionate and MI, empathetic MI, honoring MI. We have the element, which is not always just direct. So for example, on this one, Kuan Yin is given to the element of earth, and it's about giving and loving energy and elemental energy and supportive and nurturing energy. But sometimes, let's see, now I won't be able to find one, but what I really like is that sometimes it will show like this one. So Bear Eagle Goddess, Protective Eye, Deep Eye, Healing Eye. The element is earth and metal, or sometimes it will say like earth with a core of fire. And so this starts to build this really interesting dynamics between, yes, we have a primary element, but then there's sometimes this sub element here that we need to pay attention to, and how that might interact with what's there. So while we're here, let's keep going. So it has, again, the title, it has the sort of mantra, it has information about that element and how that element embodies in the card. It has the symbolism, so it explains what you're seeing, which is so important, and the power of what you're seeing and the energy behind the symbolism, which I think is absolutely so important when you are looking at cards like this that have so much going on, and so much that was put there intentionally. These aren't just kind of slapped together because they're pretty. There's a lot of intentionality of symbolism in the cards, and so if that's the case, then give us, as the person who's going to use this deck, access to that, which she definitely does. And then she gives the oracle, you know, as drawing this card. So for example, drawing this card, this is going to tell us all of this. She gives us a reversal. She does talk about reversals in this deck, and she does use reversals. The intention of this is to use reversals. It takes it from a 53, I believe, card deck. Yeah, 53 card to a 106 card deck, right? Energetically. And I do like, I have to say, I don't use reversals in tarot, but when oracles purposefully, you know, are built into the system to use reversals, I do use them in oracle, and I quite enjoy them because they're not just the reverse of the meaning. They're often quite nuanced, and she definitely has nuanced meanings for what this might mean when this card comes up that are not just the reverse of what it means, but different ways of looking at the energy. And she has a whole section about that we'll take a look at in a second. So she gives you the reversal, and then I really like this teaching. It's almost like, this is what it feels like to me. It almost feels like, okay, I'm going to take all this, right? Here's all this information here about the symbolism of Bear Eagle Goddess card. Here's all this information here that's been given. Now, here's the oracle of that, which is great. But I almost find, for like getting to the heart of the meaning, I almost find the teaching sort of coalesces all of this into sort of what should you be learning from this. Now, again, I'm not saying that that is the intention of this section, but that's kind of how it's felt to me. It's like, okay, great, I got all this background, I got all this information about this symbol, I've got understanding of how it could be used upright and reversed, and then here's the core teaching. And that to me has been quite interesting in this deck. The back is stunning. I don't think it's any surprise to anybody. And my deck will be edged in various colors, like a lot of my working animistic style energy decks are. But this back is absolutely gorgeous. It is not reversible in the sense that if you're obviously laying these down, face back up, can't speak, you're going to know that, but you know, even when I'm using reversals, I'm still laying the cards upright, so that doesn't bother me. I think it's stunning. And the cardstock is that flower, you know, it's been called like rose petal finish, but I will say it's not hard to, as you can see, sometimes when it says rose petal finish, you can't, I don't want to obviously shuffle it, it's a little bit stickier than other kinds of matte because it's got a bit of a grippiness to it, but it's really, really gorgeous, and it does still slip. Now again, I have used this deck, but you can see I have some that when you go to do this, you get clumps because you can't get it to fan out even, where this does fan out really beautifully. So yes, it's a little bit stickier, but not as sticky or grippy as some that make it really hard to shuffle, if that makes sense. It feels amazing in the hand. So that's the back. And then let's go through these. Now, one of the things that I will say here about this particular deck, that, you know, we all have our own, you know, if it was a perfect deck, it would have this. I would almost have liked to have seen a couple keywords on the cards, or like another statement or another phrase besides just the name, because many of the names are in Sanskrit or other languages, or from other cultural references, and so cultural messages that you may or may not have any idea of what those are. Now, I would also counter argue that, like, so I don't think I would want like straight up keywords. I'm trying to scroll to the beginning here. Again, yours will be an actual guidebook, which will be easier. Now, of course, these first 7 are easy because these are chakras, and many people are have some have done a lot of work with chakras, and so that might be something that is pretty easy. And it's also the first 7, so you simply know by the first 7 that we're working our way through the chakras. But after that, you know, when somebody, well, this does say chakra in it, but some of the titles are ones in which you really wouldn't have any idea if you didn't know what the symbol was, what it was, and so you will need to go to the guidebook. Now, my counter argument to that is that if you're going to be working with a system with ancient powerful symbols, that you should be willing to take the time to go in and look them up and start to learn those and spend time with them and gain an understanding of them so that you can use these with purpose, right? So perhaps not having that bit of a shortcut. And again, I don't know what I would like to see here, but even something as simple as, you know, rooted in I, nourished in I, and blaze in I, or you know, part of this elemental makeup or something like that, I think would sort of key you in, so that at least you get the gist of the meaning at one glance, and then you can deep dive into the oracle. But so that, you know, that was definitely something that I thought of while I was looking through this. But my own self went in and counter argued myself and said, well, that's all well and good, but the fact of the matter is these are old and powerful symbols, and if we aren't willing to take the time to do that, then maybe we shouldn't be working with said symbols. So there's my counter argument. So we, I'm not gonna, because I have to obviously get through this without being 3 hours long. I'm not going to go through each one of these. I've read an example, and you get this with every single one of the cards, where you have the title, you have the mantra, or what I guess I'm calling the mantra, you have the element explanation, the image, you have the symbolism of that, you have the oracle of that, you have the reversal of that, and then you have the teaching. So you get a lot of information. So I would say, in my opinion, now this is just how I've worked with this oracle, so maybe I'm biased there, but my opinion, starting off by pulling a single energy, reading it, sitting with that if you don't have an understanding of that particular symbol, and then maybe pulling some extra cards to go with it, or in my case I was casting with it as well, if I wanted to then take that energy and say, okay, that's the energy of the situation, now I'm going to go and get some more information. So spending time with them as individual cards for quite a while, I think, would be wise, unless you already have a very strong base in all of these symbols, and then then you could just skip how you want. So we have the root or the base chakra here. They're gorgeous. I absolutely, again, the artwork, the color, everything about these are absolutely stunning. So here we have the passion, or she said it's also known as the sex chakra, that is here is where the vital force is, and you can just kind of see that. And think about that if this is reversed, right? Whether or not that energy is moving upward or moving downward, and what that can mean as well, which is quite powerful. I loved this as the sort of what I consider to be will. So for me, this is the energy point of grounding, the energy point here for passion. We have the will, or that confidence, and I just love that we see the lion here, and the tones of this just shift really beautifully. Here we have the heart chakra, the space for serenity, which is people use love in such a light term, but in terms of the heart chakra or the serenity space, this is such a powerful space, and it shouldn't be diluted. And it's so sad that the word love just seems to have been diluted, and we have to reclaim that, I think. But anyways, powerful. Then we of course have the wait, am I out of order here? I don't think so. Now here we have grounding, here we have our passion, here we have will, and here we have heart. And then it goes into the throat chakra, I guess is what we would call it, certainly in English. I really liked her description of the throat chakra. She really, again, she goes into all of these symbols that we're seeing and what these things are that she's layered in, and how those add to the understanding and the meaning of it. I love her connection with water and metal, fluid and held, deep and refined. Talks about it as being known as the mouth of God. You just get so much. She also associates it with, like, it's associated, the Tibetan deities known as Yab Yum, the Buddha with consort, reside here. And of course we have an actual other card of Yab Yum as well. And so that's an interesting correlation. But whatever she's put on here, she's given us access to and an understanding of why, and then what to do with it. This is one that I had spent some time with, and I really learned a lot from her explanation. I love this deep purpley blues and colors here at the third eye chakra of intuition, and that was also an interesting write-up. I thought her write-ups here were quite powerful. Actually, I thought all of hers were, but these particularly I was interested in. And then of course we have the crown chakra, and again, just every image, like, okay, what are the symbols that she's got layered in here, and how does that add to what this means, let alone just the overall visual force of them. So that we have is the 7 chakras. And then we go into the other symbols. So the rest up to 29 are other symbols that are being used. I'm scrolling through here. It's going to definitely, I think the need for a physical book on this one is strong. So I really don't even want to try to attempt to say all of these, because I feel like these are deep religious terms and I don't want to slaughter them. But the title of this one is Sanskrit for I am that. This mantra represents the interconnectivity of all beings and awareness that everything in our experience is a reflection of ourselves. So I thought that was really powerful. Here we have a Sanskrit word describing resolution and determination. And again, the imagery on this one was really powerful. Intending am I, manifesting am I, settle am I, which I thought was an interesting combination of energies here. She also had said in a couple things that I read that the intention, I think it's in her Kickstarter as well, is that her intention is, she also does some quotes, and I love some of them, like for this one, it's a Bob Yarley. Was this one, was it for the Ritram? Ritam, not Ritram. See, that's why I'm not trying to pronounce it. I like to see you move with the rhythm. I like to see when you're dancing from within. Was Bob Mars. There are quotes sprinkled throughout here as well. This one I spent some time with and I think is absolutely beautiful. It is a Sanskrit word for liberation and release. So I guess, you know, as somebody who doesn't speak Sanskrit, right, I would have liked even just that, like, okay, if this is an actual word or a mantra that means XYZ, having that meaning there, I would allow me in the moment of pulling the card to tap into that. But I will say that you get, once you start to just put a little bit of time into this, you, from the visuals itself, you get, especially once you read what all of the things are in there, you really do start to become quite able to tap into that energy just by the visual cues that are there. So in many ways, it also, my other counter argument to myself there is that it also does allow for the visual intuitive aspect of the cards, which are very much there in this deck, because they are all intentional. None of this is random, just things that are slapped on. This is very intentional, and so that allows that intuitive energy to play with the symbols on the card as well. And again, I know that in a world in which we all have many different oracle decks and that we can literally have hundreds of decks, it's easy to you know, just, oh, just give me a shortcut onto the XYZ. But I think there are some decks that aren't really meant for shortcuts. The Weaver's Oracle, in my opinion, is not meant for a shortcut. Like, you get, I pull every time I am pulling out that guidebook, and I've used that for years, but I still want to tap back into that depth that is there. Even if I've come to an understanding, I can learn something new. And I just feel like this is a deck like that. And there has to be a point in which you're willing to dive deep and learn. Otherwise, again, I don't necessarily think that maybe this is an oracle for you. So there we have that. Here we have Shiva Shakti. There are a couple different symbols that are about that duality, which I really like. We do see masculine elements, we do see feminine elements archetypally, and then we do see quite a few of the understanding of the combination of the two. And so the mantra here is masculine am I, feminine am I, balanced and harmonious am I. And then it goes into explain it, that Shiva is a transcendent self, the masculine principle of consciousness. Shakti, or creative energy without consciousness, has no capacity to organize, it has no awareness. But when you pull these together, the god Shiva and the goddess Shakti are the eternal couple, forever in undivided union, abiding together as a universal consciousness. And again, it goes on, it explains the image of this, where the image of this comes from, what all of the different things mean here, and so on and so forth. So really taking the time to lean into that card, I think, is where you start to get some understanding of the concepts. This is a combination of 3 Sanskrit words, which mean wisdom, consciousness, and bliss. This is just gorgeous. I've pulled this one before, but the visually just really powerful here. But again, I have to keep moving here. Connected am I, holy am I, whole am I, is Sanskrit for I am one with the universe. And you can see the actual talismans or amulets that she's worked with in metal, or has helped work with. And she has I know there's a Buddhist monk metal worker artist who, and it explains the different ways in which these are made, which I found to be very fascinating. And so we see those, I don't know if it's on all of the cards, but probably in some way on all of the cards. This one we have is flame, heart am I, connection am I, joy am I. Talks about the Chinese 5-element system. Fire represents joy. And the Huichol people of the Mexican Sierra Madre consider it a god form. So again, she just goes into a lot of different ways in which flame we might associate. I love this particular symbol of the elements. Again, that's important for me. Nature, I am. Expressive, am I. Integrated, on am I. It calls us in many voices, of all the voices of the elements, which is gorgeous. And this card is just stunning. We have abundance. I think that kind of speaks for itself, right? The next one we have, sorry, I'm scrolling through here. The Dorje or Dorje, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, is a Tibetan word meaning noble stone or thunderbolt. And of course, this is a double one. And so it's the conductor is the center of a lightning storm. And again, once you know that, you can see that in the image itself and start to really work for it. There's a massive oak tree behind it representing strength and ancient power, with the symbol which this symbol embodies and shares with the great oak. So we pull in that understanding of the great oak that we have as well. It's just beautiful. Here we have the tree of life. Heart on fire. I mean, just the images here are stunning. Her artwork really is very evocative. The root word of courage, it says core, is the Latin root that means heart. Imagery for this card shows the heart on fire amulet sitting on the forehead of a jaguar. A shaman is emerging out of the mouth of a jaguar just above. Jaguar is a respected shapeshifter in the indigenous shamanic cultures of Central and South America. For these people, including the Huichol peoples of the Mexican Sierra Madre, the Toltec, and the Aztec, Jaguar is a master transformer who walks all realms. So again, she's giving us a lot of good information, not just on what we're seeing, but where do we see these symbols coming, and sometimes in multiple places, because symbols show up in multiple different cultures, and how do we see these symbols showing up, and what does that tell us about them? This is so gorgeous. Mirror, Sacred Heart, the sun and the moon. I love, love, love. This card is just stunning. 24 here is Thakcha, is what it looks like. Again, when I'm getting them, I'm trying, because again, I've really just been working with one card at a time for the most part. I haven't, I've had it for a little while waiting for the Kickstarter, but I haven't had it for a very, very long time. So I have been just working with them one card at a time. And then I try to look it up for myself as I pull that particular card. This card shows many things: an empty circle, infinity, zero, wholeness, completeness, emptiness, eternity, timelessness, a womb, cycles, unity, perfection, the beginning and the end. It holds an absence of size or quantity. I mean, that is so a lot, right? It's like you're literally holding both the void and all of the potential in one space, and then how do you depict that? It's just amazing. Here we have the cross. I really like that this has a pagan feel to the cross, because we do have some other, what I would consider to be more Christian-based symbols, like the interlocking circles that we see in the archetype cards. But this feels more like the pagan cross. And then here we have a Chakra Mandala. And so much like we had with the Elements card, sorry, I'm trying to get to have we go. I really like this, and this is why I was trying to find it, is, again, there's quotes in a lot of these. I don't know if it's all of them, but it's a lot of these. And this is a poem by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, which is a poem that I like a lot. So I had to stop and pause to say, let's look at it. What if you slept? And what if in your sleep you dreamed? And what if in your dream you went to heaven and there plucked a strange and beautiful flower? And what if when you awoke, you had that flower in your hand? Ah, what then? Oh, I love that. Yeah, I absolutely love this. So, yeah, beautiful. Love this card. Inner Marriage almost has that DNA strand feel. Very, I like the primitive style to this particular artwork here, but it still really meshes with the rest of the artwork as well. And then we have the Lotus, which is a powerful and important symbol for myself. And then the 29th symbol is Om. Again, beautiful depiction of this, beautiful visually depiction of this energy as well. So those are the 29 symbols. And then again, we have, I can't remember now how many, but we have a small number of sort of like guardian energy, totemic energy, that type of energy here of animals, where we have the honeybee, the hummingbird, and we see these, especially the hummingbird, you see in a lot of the different cards. You'll see owls show up as well. You see these interacting and flowing through the rest of the cards in really beautiful ways. When I have pulled, like the most I've pulled is 3 cards, although no, I think I did do an energy pull for myself as well with the 5 elements, but you will sometimes see these repeating images across the different ones that tie them together that I thought was really powerful. Here we have the Raven, which of course is, now my iPad is deciding to be loud, so let me try to mute it. Here we have Raven, which I love. I love there's a black and a white raven there. We have Deer. We have Jaguar, which again I think you saw just in the first 29 that we saw Jaguar showing up. We have a Wolf Eagle Goddess. I wonder if this is one that swapped as well. I'm gonna set this out in case we see one that, well, let me look at 36 on the guidebook. Again, please remember that this is a prototype, and so it's really great to be, let's be honest, I do love to be able to look at prototype decks, get to take a peek at them, get to see them in that process. Spirit Jaguar. Well, it shows it in 36, but Belonging am I, harmonious am I, purposeful am I. Wolves and women are rational by nature, inquiring, possessed of great endurance and strength. They are deeply intuitive, intensely concerned with their young, their mate, and their pack. Of course, not all women are, but the ideal of women, right? And of course, we have a quote from Clarissa Pinkola Estes, the woman who run with wolves. A strong woman is like an eagle against the strong wind she soars. So it has that understanding of the powerful, free-natured feminine. She fully abides in alignment with her instincts, even in the darkest of nights and in the wildness of environments. She is guided by her intuition, always aware of her tribe or family, and courageous and protecting it. White buffalo, the dragon phoenix, which is powerful here. And then, of course, not a totem here, but going into the deities and archetypes, we have Ganesh, Lakshmi, just absolutely beautiful. I really like how these aren't being really depicted in any kind of human form, although there is some, where, using statuary and things of that nature, but we're not literally having just depictions of women or men or whatever. It feels much more like we're getting to that archetypal or that divine energy of them rather than any kind of physical personification of them, which I think is a great way to go when dealing with these types of powerful energies. Artemis, we read through the bear eagle goddess. Kuan Yin is just beautiful. Medicine Buddha. The Yab Yen, which is I don't want to say it's a yin yang, because this is not a concept I'd ever heard of. Let's go ahead and pull it up, but it has that feeling of something similar. And again, we saw this concept cross over onto other cards. Yab Yum literally means father and mother in Tibetan. It is a depiction of the male Buddha, compassion, and his female consort, wisdom, joined together in the ecstasy of sexual union. Additionally, for Vajrayana Buddhists, the enlightened masculine represents skillful means and relative truth, while the insight and ultimate truth are representative of the enlightened feminine. Pictured together, this iconography is a multi-dimensional and powerful symbol that represents the state of perfect transcendent union and spiritual attainment. The image in the oracle card depicts Buddha and consort together in ecstatic embrace, light emanating from their bodies. So yes, and again it goes on to what you would do with this in a reading, and sort of the main teaching that we get out of that. This one is beautiful. I believe this is one that I have pulled. I'm not going to slaughter the name here. You can see it right here. It is also known as the Great Bliss Queen, the completely manifesting lady, the consort of all the Buddhas, source of all Dakinis, and the mother of all the Buddhas. She is the feminine manifestation of divine wisdom and represents the very ground of being. It's really gorgeous imagery. Here we have Durga. Here we have Kali Yantra. Here we have Lilith. Again, this is an absolutely stunning depiction, I think, of Lilith. We often get depictions of Lilith that are very... I'm going to pull her up here on the guidebook. We often get sexuality, which is fine, but I feel like in my opinion, there's so much more to the concept. Of course, the idea of Lilith was something that always fascinated me, because she was, in the way that I was raised, obviously there was no indication of Lilith. However, you do see of her in apocryphal texts, and so this concept of this wife before Adam was something that was quite intriguing to me as a younger person. Feral am I, free am I, indestructible am I. She is water with fire, darkness and brilliance, wild and sexual. Lilith is the darkest of nights. In astrological terms, she is the dark moon or black moon, which is not an actual phase of the moon, but the absence of her face in the night sky. She is the face of the fiercely authentic divine feminine. She is one of the oldest representations of a goddess dating from Sumerian and Babylonian times. She is featured in Kabbalist texts because she arose from chaos, described in the form of a beautiful woman from the waist up and a burning fire from the waist down. She is the energy of the free and feral woman who is uncompromisingly true to her own nature. Lilith is native to the wilderness and the night. She will not be dominated, tamed, or subdued. She is the embodiment of the powerful sexual woman, seductive and fully embodied, and so on and so forth. This is a great job of where some of the images come from. So for example, the image of the amulet as well as the emergent image of the naked woman in this card shows a Babylonian terracotta piece called the Burney relief, dated to around 2000 BCE. And it says, traditionally, Lilith is pictured with a lion and an owl as her companions to signify her fierceness, wisdom, and royal status amongst all of creation. Here she is pictured with wings and bird talons for feet. So again, you get so much information from the text. Here we have the Eye of Horus, Isis, La Virgen de Guadalupe. And then we have the Vesica Pisces, which I was very excited to see. This idea of the concept of the mandorla, which is the shape here in the middle. I believe this is something that I have a lot of interest in and studied. I believe this is the piece that's over the well in Glastonbury, and so you really pull together the idea of the sword. You can see the masculine sword here, but the chalice is said to be inside of the well or hidden in the well, and so it's that kind of combination of both those energies here. So I was excited to see that because that is a symbol that I do like to work with. So there we have that. So she gives a lot of information about how to use these different spreads to be able to use, and so on and so forth, which I find to be really great, especially for a deck like this. She gives examples of how you might do it. One of the things that she talks about is, of course, an element spread. And they riffle beautifully in terms of when you go to riffle them. Look at that. You get an amazing, I don't know if you can even see that here. You get amazing mix there. They don't stick in clumps, which I like. Yes, it's got a little bit of a push against it when you pulled it in because of that rose petal, but it's not bad at all. So I actually prefer to riffle shuffle this versus overhand it because of that rose petal and wanting to make sure that I get a nice, of course, you know I like to rose, but see how it still slides in really nice. There are some rose petal finishes that you go to do that and you just get chunks, and then when you go to push it in, like you're literally like fighting against it. This does have a slight resistance, but it's not, it's enjoyable. This is an enjoyable shuffle to me. So one of the things that she talks about with an elemental is you could either just pull, and she gives you, information about the 5 elements and how you would read those. So wood being movement and growth, air / metal being higher teaching, water being about emotions, earth being about the nature of the situation or the ground that holds it. I liked that idea. Fire, of course, is energy, activity, and manifesting energy. So you could either just pull, say, 5 cards. I will say, again, with that petal finish, that you sometimes do feel like you're pulling 2 cards. Look at how gorgeous it is, though. Oh my goodness, this feeds my color soul. It definitely does. You could do this and look for, or even in another reading that you're doing, seeing, do you have a predominance? Like here we do have a predominance of air and metal, and then we have 2 of earth, and then we just have this 1 over here of water. And so you can use it as a scanning, this just like you would be using the suits in tarot. So this works really great for larger readings, but you can also go through, because you have those symbols on top, and separate them out and pull from them in that way for an elemental reading. But yeah, I would be much more likely to shuffle, 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 then pull. And, you know, you could use the order that she gives. How, you know, I don't know. I would probably look up or ask my friend Itzy, because she knows about such things. But I would probably see if there is sort of an order of operations to the elements in Eastern elements or Chinese elemental system, but would be, okay, what are we seeing in the area of movement and growth? What are we seeing in the higher teachings and learnings of air and metal? What are we learning? What do we need to think about or learn about in the area of our emotions? What do we need to learn about in the area of, or what is the ground that is holding the situation? And fire, you know, what might manifest outward. And just using the random cards there is how I would approach it. And how gorgeous. How gorgeous is that, right? But again, I have primarily been pulling one card, going to the text and really leaning into the text and studying that, and then casting, you know, whatever my preferred system at the time, like whatever I have at hand, going in and casting on top of the greater energy. I've mostly been using runes and or bone casting on top of it, but you know, whatever you preferred method of casting, or just pulling, kind of sitting with that energy, reading about it, really soaking into that big energy that's there, and then say pulling 3 tarot cards or 3 of other system that you particularly like to then get the message out of that. You could also pull 1 to deep dive in, and then pull 3 more and go a little bit, you know, dive into the cards a little bit differently as well. So when I have been, again, I guess I got these all because I'm so used to putting in order. Again, she talks about in here, which I'll probably never find, so I'm not going to go. She goes into great lengths about these in terms of the reversals and why she uses it and how she uses it. So that is something that I do like to honor in an oracle system, when that is part of the system. And her reverse meanings are really great. They really do have nuance to them. It's not just, okay, now this is negative. She really does provide a lot of different thought processes about how you might work with these in their upright. And also, if you think about the fact that this is a system that's really at its core about energy, elemental, primordial, archetypal, powerful energy and sound and vibration, to see, you know, which way is it coming in or is it going out? Is it, you know, that kind of energy, I think actually lends a lot to it. Again, for myself, so far, I've just been pulling 1, but I think that she makes a very good case for it. And again, it is her intention that they be used that way. So there you have it. I hope that you've enjoyed this. This is again a look at the Tulku Oracle, and this is just a prototype of that deck. The actual deck, take a look at the links below to the Kickstarter, and or if this is past when you're watching this past when the Kickstarter went on, go to look at the website for the actual box and the image, you know, image of the box, images of the guidebook, because this is a prototype of that particular deck. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. It was an honor to be able to take a look at this deck, and I will see you guys on the next one.